right. So I would like to start by saying that today was my father's yard site. So I'd like to dedicate this class to my father, to be an aliyah for the neshama, an elevation for the soul of Naftali Tzvi Yehuda ben Minshafega ben Reuven. That's the introduction. And I'm going to share one vignette from my father. I have lots and lots and lots and lots of stories about my father. And of course, they're all very, very precious to me. So my father was a scientist. He worked for the Defense Department. He was a very brilliant and successful scientist, meaning he made a lot of inventions. He worked for the only laboratory in the American Defense Department, named after a Jew, at least when he started working. It was called the Harry Diamond Laboratory. That was a famous Jewish scientist of the American Defense Department. In the middle of his working, they changed the name to some army, whatever, AD, whatever. But that was the original name. So he thought that was like interesting. As we just said, nothing's random. It's all for a reason. As a scientist, what you do is make inventions. And as a laboratory, what you do is try to make a lot of inventions. And my father's laboratory, the laboratory my father worked, they were reaching an unbelievable milestone. This laboratory, it's not so small, but this one laboratory in the Defense Department was going to reach 1,000 patents, which was a huge number. It was a tremendous milestone. So of course you could already see, they saw it coming and they were preparing and they were making this huge gala festive event, like a celebration. Spouses were invited, children were invited. There was an outdoor event, an indoor meal, like everything was like, whoa, this is incredible. And as we're saying, nothing is random. Everything is the hand of God, hashgacha pratis. And my father received the patent number 1,000. Which again, it doesn't mean his patents or inventions were any better than anyone else in the lab. Someone's going to be 997. That he, b'hashgacha pratis, hand of God, received the patent number 1,000. So this is a big event. It's on a Sunday. My father, mother, and myself go. I don't remember if my younger siblings came, but the three of us for sure were there. And they call up, with lots of applause, the one who created patent number 997, the one who created 998, the one who created 999. And now they're calling up my father. He received patent number 1,000. So again, even though happened to be, but still, this is the one that did it. So it's very, very important. And as my father's going on stage, he went on stage in a kapata. And a kapata is the garment a chassid wears. My father was a Lubavitcher chassid. Now, obviously, he didn't go to work in a kapata. He went to work in a suit and tie. No, they show all the pictures now of scientists in white lab coats. Not my father's department. They wore suits and ties. But for this event, for this very significant moment in the history of the laboratory, when all these eyes are going to be on him, he wanted to go up as a Jew. He didn't want to go up as Dr. Berg, scientist. He wanted to go up as a Jew. And that's why he chose to put on this garment that he only would normally wear on Shabbos or on a holiday, but he put it on to go up as a Jew. And after my father passed away, my father was very ill because of the work he had done for the Defense Department. And he passed away very, very young. He was only 53, which of course is younger than I am today. It seems very, very young. And afterwards, someone said to my mother, one of his co-workers who happens to be Jewish, he said that when he saw Dr. Berg, my father, going up there that way, it gave him such a jolt of Jewish pride, Jewish, as we say, stolz, stamina, backbone, presence, that he didn't want to go up as a scientist. He wanted to go up as a Jew. So we were talking last week about Moshiach, like the best, greatest, most amazing, and significant topic of all times. And Yael asked me, extemporaneously, of course, we had not planned it in advance, sources for Moshiach, and I gave her. And then afterwards, because of course it was on the top of my head, I was like, I wanted to give her more details. To be honest, I don't remember exactly what I said and didn't say. I'm just going to gloss over what I said and fill in a few more points because I felt it really was a very important question, even though I don't remember anyone ever asking me it before. But it was such an important question. I didn't want to shortchange it. So what I know is, of course, what we discussed was the basics. Someone says, what's the source for Mashiach? In Torah, in an overt way, there are exactly three. Prophecy of Bilam, that I know we discussed, and we spoke about why would such a wicked, horrible person merit to this. The verse, V'shava elkecha shvuscha, God will restore the captives, the idea of the source for the ingathering of all Jews, and the commandment of the cities of refuge, that we discussed it at length, why Mashiach, the redemption, is connected to a mitzvah. We want it to come down in a this world reality. If it's a verse, it might come spiritually. We don't want it spiritually, we want it this world. Why this commandment, city of refuge, it seems almost irrelevant. I mean, nobody's going to be murdering by Mashiach. We discussed it practically for all the murderers that murdered during history when there was no city of refuge to run to. We discussed it more deeply, how possibly in the beginning there'll be this evil, which is external, like the snake, and you need protection. The words of Torah are protection. And so the city of refuge symbolizes immersing ourselves in the inner dimension of Torah, the new Torah that will be revealed by Mashiach. And that's actually why originally there were 6 cities of refuge. And when Mashiach comes, we're supposed to add another 3. So the 6 symbolize the 6 tractates of Mishnah, because Mishnah is the original codification of Torah, of the oral law. That's the 6. But what's the plus 3 that we then have 9 by Mashiach? Well, the plus 3 actually stands for the entire Torah, as it's symbolized by the written Torah, Nevi'im, and Kesuvim. The Torah, the prophets, and the writings, because that plus 3 of Torah, of Nevi'im and Kesuvim, of the written Torah, all of Torah, representing all of Torah, by Mashiach is going to be different. It's going to be infused with the inner dimension of Torah. That is the new Torah of Mashiach, the inner dimension of Torah. And when we immerse ourselves in that Torah, we will have this protection. Besides those 3 places in Torah, I sort of felt bad afterwards that I didn't emphasize this point. It's not like, and nowhere else in the entire 5 books of Moses is Mashiach there. Mashiach is in many, many, many other places. I could show you in every single parsha Mashiach. What I meant was explicitly, it's exactly what it says. This is talking about Mashiach, which is what we could call a source. But Mashiach is interwoven throughout all of the 5 books, and literally throughout. You can find references and allusions to Mashiach, starting with, of course, the very second verse of the entire Torah. Right? The first verse we know, for the sake of 2 firsts, God created heaven and earth. What's the second verse? The world was chaos, confusion. It was a world of water. There was no land to see. It was all water. And the Spirit of God hovered over the face of the waters. And the sages say, what is the Spirit of God that's hovering over the face of the water? What does that mean? What is the Spirit we're talking about? Ze Rucho Shel Mashiach. This is the Spirit of Mashiach. This is Midrash, chapter 1, verse 2 of Genesis, which is an amazing concept because that's how primordial Mashiach is. Yes, you can find it explicitly in 3 places in the 5 books. But the very first concept we're being told here in the second verse is when the world is chaos, when all you see is water, you have the image of the Spirit of God over those waters. And what is that Spirit of God? It's the Spirit of Mashiach, which really expresses that Mashiach is not, as some people probably erroneously view it, like the icing on the cake. Like, oh, you did such a nice job. Here's Bisley. Here's a lollipop. Here's my credit card. Even. No. Mashiach is the point and purpose of all of creation. And that's why this primordial vision, when we're just starting, what's stamped into creation? What's the first vision? Mashiach. It's the source of everything. It's actually one of the explanations for the month that, yes, is coming. Shabbos is Rosh Chodesh. We're starting Av. Well, we don't call it Av. No. We don't want to say that. That would sound too negative. We call it Menachem Av. And there's many different explanations of Menachem Av. Av represents the sadness, the loss, the tragedy. And Menachem means the comfort. And the only real comfort for all this tragedy is Mashiach, right? So Menachem Av, Menachem represents Mashiach, and that's the comfort for the Av, for the tragedy. But another way of looking at that phrase, Menachem Av, and there are many ways of looking at that phrase, is that Menachem is Mashiach. Av actually represents father, right? That's what the term Av means, father, in Hebrew and in Aramaic. So Menachem Av, Mashiach, Menachem, is Av. It's the father, meaning it's the roots of everything. It's not the reward at the end. It's not the prize you get for being good. It's what's stamped, what's the point and purpose of creation to the degree that it's the first vision of creation. Ruach Elokim rachefes al pnei hamayim, the Spirit of God hovering over the waters. This is the Spirit of Mashiach. So just as it's here throughout all of Torah. Again, literally, if you go parsha by parsha, you could find references and midrashim and many, many, many concepts of Mashiach, of course. Then we said in the prophets, we spoke of Yeshaya, Isaiah as the prophet of redemption. Then in Gemara, we spoke throughout Gemara, most specifically, most famously, probably in Sanhedrin, page 97, page 98, page 99. But again, not only page 97, 98, and 99 of Sanhedrin. Throughout Talmud, the Gemara says the world was only created for Mashiach. And then throughout Zohar, as it says in the Zohar, that through the study of this work of yours, meaning Rosh Bar Yochai is being told this, the Jews will be redeemed with compassion. So through the study of Zohar, this is a catalyst for bringing redemption. And then, of course, as we go to later, the codifiers, starting with the Rishonim, we have Maimonides. Maimonides put together the 13 foundations of faith, and 12 and 13 are Mashiach. 12 is Mashiach, and 13 is the resurrection, Tches HaMesim. And of course, all of Chassidus, starting with the Baal Shem Tov. The Baal Shem Tov, as I think we discussed, had this vision on Rosh Hashanah. He wrote it, he shared it with his brother-in-law, who was in Israel at the time. That's how we know about it. That he went up to the chamber. He said he went up to the chamber of Mashiach, and he said, Amos Kasimar, my master, when will you come? When is the master coming? And the master, the soul of Mashiach, responded to the Baal Shem Tov, when your wellspring spread to the farthest reaches throughout the entire world. And that became the mandate and the focus of Chassidus, and of course very strongly of Chassidus Chabad, to bring this awareness of Mashiach, to spread these wellsprings throughout the entire world, to bring Mashiach. So that was a more full-fledged response to Yael's great question. We were in the middle of discussing, after what she asked, when is Mashiach coming? And of course, we said now, and we spoke about it. We were actually in the middle of the discussion, but I just was like, it's going to take too long. We're going to go over too much time. Feel bad for everyone's patience, especially people for whom this is quite late. Let me just quickly remind you of the concept. We were explaining that Mashiach has to come now. It's very late on the cosmic clock. And we explained that the world is divided. The world has a 7,000-year mandate. There were 7 days of creation. Each day of creation created a millennium, which means 1,000 years. So the whole world, as a world as we know it, has 7,000 years. Of course, it will continue afterwards, but in a different fashion. So the first 2,000, no possibility of Mashiach. The world cannot contain that God energy. The second 2,000, Mashiach could come, but it wouldn't be like fully baked yet. The next 2,000, starting from the year 4,000, we are in the year 5785, 1,785 years ago. Okay, we could have it completely cooked, ready, Mashiach. And then we were explaining this idea that Mashiach has to come before the year 6,000. Actually, we're told technically, and we already have to be in the second stage by the year 6,000. So that was the point we're trying to explain. So we understand from the year 4,000, it was possible 1,785 years ago. Imagine all the tragedies, all the pain, all the suffering that has happened over the past 1,785 years. Of course, envision all the service of God, all the dedication to God, all the sacrifice for God, all the study of Torah and living Torah and fulfilling the commandments that has happened over the past 1,785 years. Which is why, of course, the Mashiach that's going to happen now is not the Mashiach that would have come, that could have come in the year 4,000. It's far more able to be expressed in the fullest form because we have so saturated the world with our sweat and sacrifice and service. But why are we saying Mashiach has to come? Everyone agrees before the year 6,000. Because again, every day creates 1,000 years of history. We went through this in detail last time. I'm not going to go through the details now since we did that last time. We got in the middle, but it's okay. So the first day of creation has a trait which creates 1,000 years. So that was kindness. The second was strength, withholding. The third was compassion. Day 6, Friday of creation, creates the 6th millennium. The 6th millennium is from the year 5,000 to the year 6,000. Day 7 creates the 7th millennium, the final millennium of the world as we know it, from the year 6,000 to the year 7,000. So on day 6 of creation, that was a creation of man. Man is the foundation. He's the point and purpose of it all. Just as I said, Genesis, creation. The The Spirit of God hovered over the face of the waters. What is that Spirit of God hovering when there's nothing but water in the Spirit of God? It's the Spirit of Moshiach. So who's supposed to make this all happen? Man. Adam, the first man, and all of us that come from him. He was created on that day. He's the catalyst. He's the one making this happen. From this, we have 1,000 years of history with, and again, I'm not going to go into explaining again why the pains of this and the beauty of this millennium. But what happened on day 7 of creation? What was created on day 7? Day 5 was the big animals. Day 6 was man. Day 7 was Shabbos. Shabbos was created on day 7. And that creation of Shabbos empowers a millennium of Shabbos. That millennium of Shabbos is that millennium of Mashiach. As we say, Yom Shakula Shabbos Umenucha L'Chayei Ha'olamim, right? Mashiach is like one long, beautiful Shabbos. All the spirituality, far deeper spirituality. We're told that the world as we know it is a world of God's speech. Shabbos, we get deeper and more intimate with God. It's a world of God's thoughts. Mashiach is deeper and more intimate than that. Mashiach is the world of God's subconscious thoughts. So like Shabbos, but even more deep, even more close and absolutely one with God. That's Mashiach. So that's from the year 6000. From the year 6000, we have the millennium of Mashiach, but it has to come before, because our sages say, well, that's really the second stage. All right, so could we come in the year 5999? But it's Friday of creation. And from Friday, you enter into Shabbos. But you don't enter in on a hair's breadth. We don't bring in Shabbos that way. We bring it in early. If you're in Chicago, 20 minutes. If you're in Yerushalayim, it depends on where, I don't know, an hour or so. In many cities of the world, 18 minutes. However you bring it in early, everyone brings in Shabbos early. So if Shabbos is the Mashiach reality, we're not supposed to enter in the year 5999 on a hair's breadth. We have to bring it in early. And that's why when we're looking at this cosmic time, being in the year 5785, it's like, okay, yeah. We get why the Lubavitcher Rebbe is saying Mashiach is coming now. Like, almost like what choice do we have? So how are we supposed to see in the world that Mashiach is coming now? Well, there's actually many signs in the Talmud. The Talmud discusses what are the signs of the coming of Mashiach. The signs that don't seem that positive, like the face of the leaders will be like the face of a dog. There'll be rampant chutzpah. There won't even be a penny in someone's pocket. Like, all right, we could say check, 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 fulfilled. We could also look at it in a more positive way. But we can see a lot of good things in the world that are definitely signs of the coming of Mashiach. Bottom line to me is Lubavitcher Rebbe said Mashiach is coming now. He sees it. He just sees it. Mashiach is coming now. And it's almost like a skyscraper, and we're somewhere on the top floor. And we get a call from someone on the bottom floors, and he says, there's a flood, there's a lot of water, you're going to get flooded. We're like, what are you talking about? It's completely dry. Totally dry. I don't see anything. Can't even look down and see the water because it's so far below. I'm telling you, there's water here. I see the water. Yes, it's dry, but the people below, they're getting wet. They know it. If we just think every drop of good that was done since the beginning of time is around. Evil you can repent for, but any mitzvah lasts forever. So at this point, as I think we mentioned last time, not my parable, very famous metaphor for this, we're the midget on the shoulder of the giants. The giants meaning all the good that was done until now. And we just get a little bit past because we're a little bit on top of them. And that's, of course, like a famous vision of Maimonides, of Rambam. Rambam says, and he wrote this, he lived some 850 years ago, that there's just a little bit more left. We have to add our little part. He said, envision the entire world is balanced, and your next act tips the scales and brings salvation for the entire world. He's saying one deed. I mean, this isn't me talking. This is Maimonides. He's saying one good deed can tip the scale and bring salvation for the entire world. And that's why the Lubavitcher Rebbe says, it takes one Jew. One Jew now can bring Mashiach for the entire world. And I think that's a really important, life vision, meaning those words are real. Like we know them, and rabbis speak, at the end of their speech, they usually say something along these lines. Nothing here is innovative. You've heard it many times. But if we just think of that one point, my next deed has the potential to tip the scale for humanity. Oh, got to make sure that next deed is a good one. It's meant to be a very powerful impetus and image, a vision of the power we all have, and literally the power we all have to bring redemption. Different people are doing different things to express this nowness of Mashiach. Meaning, if you look around the Jewish world, a lot of people are feeling this from a lot of different stripes of religious Jewry. It's like in the air. People are getting it. So Machon HaMikdash, Miriam was just in Yerushalayim. I don't know if you stopped by Machon HaMikdash, right? They're right by the Kosel. What does Machon HaMikdash do? They're making kalim. They are saying, Mashiach's going to come. We're ready. We already have the vessels. That is their perspective on how you get ready and bring Mashiach now, because Mashiach, you don't have to wait. We already got the vessels for you. When I was by my son's wedding last year, we went to a place I've actually never been in Israel, even though I lived there for 2 years in seminary, Shiloh. Any of you have been to Shiloh? Any of you been to Shiloh? Anyone here? Okay, well, I wasn't either. Shiloh, of course, is the site where the Mishkan was for 369 years. What do they have in Shiloh? They have para adumas. I was like blown away. Again, where do they get para adumas from? Well, people are breeding them in Texas and shipping them to Israel and keeping them in Shiloh with people trained in the laws of red heifer, so nothing should happen that would disqualify it. Again, they're saying, hey, Mashiach's coming. We need that 10th para aduma. We need that 10th red heifer. We have it. Fear not. We have 4 of them right now in our pen. I think one of them got disqualified. So they have 3. I don't know where they're holding now. But could you imagine? This is, for some people, their expression that Mashiach is coming now, and we got to be ready. So we got to have this red heifer. I had a guest in my house. He came here to speak in Chicago to my community. What was he all into? Now, this was before Pesach. He was producing a machzis hashekel, the half shekel coin. He's a very brilliant man, and he had studied all the approaches, because a machzis hashekel has to be a machzis hashekel. It has to be exactly half of the valuation of a shekel. If it's a tiny drop more or a tiny drop less, it's disqualified. How much is a shekel today? Well, there's different opinions. He had studied them all. He told me another organization did this as well, that they were literally producing machzis hashekels you could buy to have your machzis hashekel ready. Okay, I'm not breeding paradumas, and I'm not making the kalim with the Machon HaMikdash, and I didn't order the machzis hashekel, but it just was, to me, an expression. And of course, many, many more. I know there's women that are practicing weaving, so they should be able to weave the tapestries. Like, there's so many people in so many different communities all over the world that are saying it's so real, we have to live it and make the practical preparations. The key point, of course, is live it by adding and serving God. Add in Torah and mitzvahs with the intention to bring Mashiach. Give charity. You could give charity every day and say, this should bring Mashiach. Accept Mashiach. And very, very, very significantly, learn about Mashiach. Learning about Mashiach is a critical factor. Accepting Mashiach and learning about Mashiach are probably the 2 most critical cornerstones we need to really, from our end, do our best efforts to bring Mashiach now. So what will it be like when Mashiach comes? Well, before I get into that, does anyone have any other questions on what I said, or questions about Mashiach that they would like to ask?
I have a question.
Sure.
About the paraduma. You mean they have like 3 red cows in Shiloh?
They
Like
have
they're
actually
red?
4 when I was there last year, but they told me one of the 4
Yeah.
was disqualified. It's very easy to get disqualified. I think even if a branch gets put on it, it gets disqualified. They have to be very, very careful with them.
Or they're red. They're red.
Yeah, I saw them. I mean, they're a brownish red. They don't look like, neon red, but yeah. They don't even have 2 black hairs. Yes, I saw.
So what
I
makes
saw
them
all
a
4 of them.
paraduma? Like, what's the
Paraduma
qualification?
is a cow that is all red hairs. Doesn't even have. If it has 1 black hair, I think it's okay. But if it has even 2, They have to check every single hair, and that cow can never be worked. If any work was ever done on that cow, it's disqualified. And that's why they really have to watch those cows. Because I'm saying even if like a branch would like come on it, that would be considered work. Okay, it's disqualified. So they literally breed them. There's a strain. They're breeding to produce them. They're breeding red to red, red to red, red to red. They're breeding to produce red heifers. And whenever they get one that qualifies, that doesn't have even 2 black hairs, they ship it to Israel.
But why isn't this known? Like, I never heard of this. I don't know. I
Um,
just think, wouldn't that be something that we would know? I don't know. More
it's
famous?
interesting because I remember a few years ago seeing a video, like it was going around WhatsApp, of some farmer, like in New Jersey, that his cat that no breeding, like so to speak, accidentally, his cow gave birth to a completely red cow. And I don't remember if he was Jewish or not, but like he knew like this is a red heifer. And like people had offered him fortunes to sell it to them. And he's like, no way. Again, I don't remember. He might have been non-Jew, might have been Jewish. I don't remember. He's like, no way. I want, when redemption comes, I have the merit of offering this. So he had like rabbis, I think it was in New Jersey. I think rabbis from Lakewood came and they like were working with him to explain to him that he has to understand exactly what it means that this stays, in the halachic category of a red heifer. So I remember seeing that video once a few years ago, but here they're literally breeding them. There's a certain strain of cow that has a reddish hair, and they're just breeding and breeding and breeding that strain to get these pure red cows. Yeah. It's not like orangey red, it's like auburn, but every hair is that auburn. Yeah. It's unbelievable.
Interesting.
It was very interesting because I also never knew about it till I saw it. It was actually I was never, and I said I lived for 2 years. I studied in Israel. I did 2 years of seminary there. And not that I was like the world's traveler of Israel, but I still got around. Never was in Shiloh. It's really amazing. And especially if you're taken to the place where they assume, based on archaeology, this was the place of the Mishkan. They have like a platform there. This is the place where they believe Hannah davened for her son Shmuel. And they have many stories of barren women that come there and daven and have children. Any questions on Mashiach anyone wants to ask before I continue?
I do have another question.
Okay.
Is Moshiach a person, a man, like a physical man with 2 legs, 2 arms, upright, 2 eyes, 2 ears, a nose, hair? Or is Moshiach like a
Or a
thought,
concept.
a concept? Yeah.
Okay, good question. Mashiach is actually both. It depends how the word is used. Meaning Mashiach, well, literally Mashiach means the anointed one, right? Mashiach is from the word Mashuach, because the human being Mashiach will be anointed as every Jewish king is anointed. Every true, king from the house of David is anointed. That's what Mashiach means, the anointed one. Why am I saying then too, you're right in both ways? Because generally Mashiach means a human being, not an angel, not a woman, a man, a human being, as Maimonides describes. But the term Mashiach could also mean the era. Meaning when we look at the writings, there's Melech HaMashiach and Yemos HaMashiach. Melech HaMashiach means King Mashiach. King Mashiach is a human being, born of a woman and a man, like every other human being. Yemos HaMashiach means the days of the Mashiach, meaning Mashiach is the king, the human. But Yemos HaMashiach are his days, his era, which means the days of redemption. So when you are a little loose in how you talk and you're not being like, technically precise, you could use the word Mashiach to mean either one. Because I could mean Mashiach, Melech HaMashiach, King Messiah. I could mean Mashiach, Yemos HaMashiach, the days of the Messiah. So if I mean Mashiach as the days of the Messiah, I don't mean a human being. I mean an era. And if I mean Mashiach as a human being, when I say Mashiach, I mean King Mashiach, King Messiah. Is he human? He's absolutely human, born of a woman, fathered by a man, And Rambam, Maimonides, gives criterion. Like, how are we going to know who he is? Well, fear not. Maimonides codified everything, including he's actually the only codifier we have who codified the laws of Mashiach. Because most codifiers said, why should we codify something not currently practical and applicable? So they didn't codify sacrifices, the Jubilee, anything that we're not currently able to do. Like, don't worry, when we get to Mashiach, we'll learn it all then. But Maimonides codified everything. He said, no. He's giving us the entire Torah in his magnum opus called Mishnah Torah, or called Yad HaChazaka, because it's 14 volumes. Yad, hand, is numerical value 14. He codifies everything to the degree that he writes in his introduction, have a Tanakh, have my book, you're good to go. Everything you should know as a Jew is written in these 14 volumes. Mishnah Torah, second to the Torah, Yad HaChazaka, these 14 volumes. So his last final 2 chapters of 14 volumes, like what's the climax of all this, is the laws of Mashiach. He codifies the laws of Mashiach for us. And in the beginning, he writes the criterion for Mashiach. So they're criterion, this is, a want ad, a job description. These are the criterion. So this is a very, very human being who is chosen by God to be the Redeemer, to be the mouthpiece for Hashem. Meaning just like Moshe, right? Moses. What did God need Moshe for? It's very interesting. I don't know if you ever noticed. In the Haggadah, Moshe's name is only once, and that's in a verse of reference, of proof for something it's saying. It's all talking about God taking us out of Egypt. But as we know the story, Moshe was the human representative. He was God's emissary. Why did God need Moshe? He couldn't have done it himself? Of course he could have done it himself. God wants to work through the human. That's part of the whole perspective of God in creation. I want Mashiach here. I want it in the physical. I want it in the human. So just as Hashem, Goyal Rishon, the first and ultimate redeemer, was Moshe, there's a Goyal Achron, human being. Moshe was a human being. Yes, he was a perfect human being. Yes, he lived for a perfect 120 years from Zion Adar to Zion Adar. Yes, he was in heaven for 120 days, but he was a human being. He has a father and a mother, and we know their names. So he's the first redeemer, and Mashiach is the final redeemer. And I guess what we could do, I'll stop here, but if you want, next time I can go through Rambam's criterion, who is Mashiach. All right, thank you.